Hello everyone, this is me, Mr. Big T Anderson. Today we're doing Adventures in Xenolinguistics by Coollizard. This is a Babylon 5 fanfiction. For those who are new here, let me go over the rules. I'm just the schmucky duck reading it. I have not written these fanfictions. I will not say I have written these fanfictions. This one in particular is done by Coollizard. If you feel that this fanfiction is really good, you go hit those links down below. There is one for the author's page. There is another one just for the story. You give a review, you give some love. Otherwise, they don't know what they're doing right. So, with that, let us begin the story. Let me get a little bit of drink here. Okay. Adventures in Xenolinguistics. On their first night in the Centauri prison cell, Londo woke in a cold sweat. The place was silent, unnervingly so. On the station, even when things were at their most quiet, there was always sound. The low whine of the air recyclers, the hum of the rotation engines. When Londo first came aboard, he had hated it with a passion. He had brought earplugs to sleep with, not that they'd help. The whole place vibrated just subtly enough to be unnoticeable when awake and intolerable when asleep. Now, though, he found he had trouble sleeping without the sound. The silence was too much like being dead. Quite ironic, really, said G'Kar, in a way that so closely mirrored Londo's own thoughts that he startled. I used to come up with a million petty ways to annoy you, should we ever be trapped in the same location. It's a bit of a waste not to use them now that I have the chance, but, well, I suppose it wouldn't be fun anymore. Go back to sleep, Londo said, rolling to face the wall of the cell. Why should I? You're up. Not by choice, I assure you, and I will be going back to sleep now if you don't mind. Silence again, but only for a few minutes, and there was a part of Londo which was irrationally grateful for that. Do you want to talk about it? I don't know what it is, G'Kar. The region, this prison cell, the Alliance, our place in the universe. You'll have to be a little bit more specific. The dreams, Malari. Londo said nothing for a very long time, so long that he thought perhaps that G'Kar had given up on an answer and fallen asleep. The silence in the cell was deafening, and he hated it. I understand. Forget I asked anything. Londo seized onto the sound of G'Kar's voice like a drowning man. How do you know I am having dreams? Most sentient creatures who sleep have dreams. It's the brain's way of processing loose information, I'm told. Dr. Franklin had several theories regarding the differences in sleep cycles between species. I'm sure he'd be happy to share them with you sometime. That is not what I meant, G'Kar, and you know it. You know, I take it back. There is still some fun in annoying you after all. G'Kar. Your body language is different, G'Kar said, and Londo blinked at the sudden switch back to seriousness. Whenever you wake from one of those dreams. And which dreams are those dreams? A pause, much longer than Londo was expecting then. You forgot that I saw the inner workings of your mind, Molari. Londo scoffed. Oh, believe me, I don't think I will ever forget that, nor will Ver, I imagine. G'Kar made a pained sound somewhere in the back of his throat, and Londo rolled over to look at him. He was sitting up, staring at the wall, an unreadable expression on his face. G'Kar. I'm sorry for that. Londo sat up. Why are you apologizing now? Because I realized that I never have. Better late than never, as the humans say. Londo wasn't sure what to say to that, so he nodded and awkwardly looked away. Thank you. I don't... neither Vir nor I hold that against you anymore, I think. Silence again, a little more bearable now that Londo was awake still. It was something of a relief when G'Kar spoke again. My point was merely that I know your death dream. Ah, I see. Then I'll ask again. Do you want to talk about it? Londo sighed. If you saw it when you were in my mind, then I think you know that you're probably the worst person for me to talk about it with. G'Kar shrugged. Maybe. Or the best, perhaps. No. There's too much. I would not know where to start. I'm never sure where to start with you. Londo nodded. It was true enough. He glanced at G'Kar, still looking away from him, still unreadable in the moonlight, and with no trace of the hatred it would take to finally strangle him to death. It is a terrible thing, I think, to hate your future more than you hate your past. G'Kar hesitated for a moment as though carefully choosing his next words. I know your people put a good deal of stock in these sorts of things, but we place stock in them because they are true, G'Kar. I would not expect you to understand. G'Kar shrugged. Well then, I guess there isn't much for us to talk about, after all. Good night, Mollari. He started to lie back down. Wait, said Londo, surprising himself a bit. I didn't mean to be so snappish about it. But you will not convince me to disregard what I know to be true so easily. You understand, yes? That depends. Are you saying that you want me to try harder or to let it drop? Let it drop. This is not a point that will be amusing to argue about for either of us. G'Kar made a face, but he nodded in agreement. Fine then. Tell me, Mollari, which part of your dream do you despise so much? That I kill you, or that you kill me? Neither. Londo answered instantly, and G'Kar cocked his brow. Oh? It's not the killing, G'Kar. It's what comes along with it. The hatred. Mine, more than yours, since I'm sure you are going to ask that next. G'Kar hummed in a non-committal way, swung his legs around so he was facing Londo properly. Do you hate me, Mollari? Ugh. Londo made a vague, disdainful sound. I find language is not really adequate in that respect. Words like hate, love, trust. At the end of the day, what do any of them really mean? So then, no. Of course I do not hate you now, G'Kar. But what good is that, When I will hate you again in the future? You don't know that. G'Kar, as I have said, a death dream is... Yes, your fates are predestined. Very well, if you believe that. But you still don't know that you'll hate me when it happens, if it happens. Londo scoffed. Yes, well, I do not go around strangling my friends to death, no matter what you may think. G'Kar fiddled with one of his gloves. And is that what we are now? Friends? Silently, Londo cursed the verbal slip. The word friend, the very idea of it, crossed so many lines and so many careful compromises, but it was so easy to say. Much easier than it would ever be to describe his and G'Kar's actual relationship. I don't, words, inadequate again here, I think. Oh, what do you mean? Well, Londo took a breath and thought for a moment before answering. It is like I said. People throw around words like hatred and love and friendship and so on, but those feelings change, do they not? And yet, even when the type of feeling changes, it seems like sometimes the strength of it remains. I have spent so much of my life hating you, G'Kar. And now that I no longer hate you, I suppose it is expected that I should feel nothing for you. But we keep being drawn together. You and I, it's like perhaps our fates are intertwined, our souls connected, as they say. And I cannot really call what we have a friendship. Because it's not really. Not in the sense that people mean when they use that word. But also, friendship is so very insufficient. When I try it on for size in my mind, it feels as wrong as calling the thing which Sheridan and Delenn have a friendship, except they are in love, and I certainly do not love you. And I do not know what to make of that. As I said, language is not adequate. Not at all. G'Kar chuckled. What is so funny? Eh? You're asking me to explain to you this, to bare my lungs, as the humans say, and you... No, you misunderstand, said G'Kar quickly. All that you have said, well, I suppose it is much the same from my end, but only a Centauri could come to that ridiculous conclusion. What ridiculous conclusion? I don't see that I have concluded anything. That is a bit at the heart of the problem. Molari, it is not uncommon to find yourself confronted with an idea that you do not know how to express. In that sort of situation, any rational being would conclude that they lack the knowledge or tools for the job. Perhaps they might even posit that these tools do not yet exist, and so invent their own for their purpose. Ah, but a Centauri concludes that the problem is the very nature of language itself. If you haven't already thought of something perfect at that very moment, then the task is beyond you, nay, beyond anyone. It simply cannot be done. The universe has decreed otherwise. I didn't say that. You are being terribly unfair, G'Kar. Yes, indeed. I like to think of it as something of an art form. And anyways, I did not say that it was impossible to express, merely that language, as it currently exists, is inadequate. Ah, but there you are, just as wrong. Oh? Yes, we Narn have a perfectly good set of vocabulary for expressing those things. Truth be told, I've always found the friend and enemy distinctions the other races make to be imprecise and cumbersome. Londo scoffed. You forget that I have studied your language. You have words for friend and enemy, same as we do. Well, yes, but since they are the same word, I think you failed to make your point. Now you are just pulling my nay. Thonan is friend, is it not? And Thonkwa is enemy. They are not the same word at all. Now G'Kar was laughing in earnest. Oh, bah! My accent is not that bad. True, said G'Kar, surprising him. No one would mistake you for a native speaker, but your tones are fairly good, considering your Narm is probably better than my Centauri. That, said Londo, a half-formed retort dying in his throat. Thank you. But, continued G'Kar, and of course there was always a but. The fact that those are the translations you were taught is fairly revealing about Centauri culture. How so? Well, we Narn don't measure our connection with others by the type of feeling we have for them. We do it the rational way, by how well we know them. I am not sure I follow. You're saying that Thonan is not a friend? Not exactly. You see, if your friends, or if your feelings of friendship are primarily ori, you've only known that person for a short while, or else you've never spent much personal time with them apart from business or family affairs. That is, you are not their onkat. Or, if you're merely speaking generally, and so are not trying to identify the person as either your onkat or your ankir, then G'Kar slowed to a halt as he realized that Londo was not following any of this in the slightest. Let me start over. Please, said Londo, and made a sort of flippant hand gesture that G'Kar could only roll his eyes at. It's really quite simple. Londo snorted, but G'Kar continued, unperturbed. We Narn have levels of relationship. The most commonly used one of these is Thon. Then there are modifiers, which tell the type of feeling you have for the purpose. So Thonan is someone who is your Thon, and you have the feeling of Ori for. Thonkwa is a Thon who you have feelings of Kwa for. I see. Very strange. Londo thought for a moment. But wait, you said levels. There is more than just Thonan and Thonkwa there. Indeed. There are 4 levels of relationship. The first, Iluk, are those who are almost entirely unknown to you. Those who you recognize but only have rarely and briefly interacted with. Not strangers, but the next thing after. Acquaintances, Londo supplied. More or less, said G'Kar. Then you have Thon, those whose habits you've come to know, whose likes and dislikes you're familiar with. So, friends. Not necessarily. When we first came to know each other, Malari, you were my thorn. I knew you gambled compulsively. I knew your taste in liquor. I'm familiar with your moods and body language. At the time, all these were things I despised, but the important thing was merely that I knew them. I see, said Londo slowly. After Thorn, there is Onkat, those you are close with. The classic test of Onkat is, how much would their absence affect your day-to-day life? Someone who you know well, but who is essentially interchangeable to you, can never be your Onkat. Ah, said Londo. So, let me see if I have this right. Lenier always struck me as a decent fellow. Too straight-laced, but someone whose company I enjoyed. But when he left this station, I didn't really find that I missed him exactly. I didn't have things I wanted to tell him or show him that I couldn't tell or show anyone else. Therefore, he is my thorn and not my Onkat. Precisely. But there, he misses Lenier a great deal, even though all they ever really did together was talk and complain. So Ver and Lenier are Onkat, yes? I never really saw the two of them together, but yes, that sounds correct. And the fourth level? G'Kar smiled. Ah, that would be Ankir. What we are to each other now, I suspect. Londo made a startled choking sound. Have I said something strange? Londo fumbled for words. When I studied your language, well, that is to say that my translations must have been quite off. If we are, as you say, Ankir. Oh, and what did they tell you that Ankir meant? They, it was... Londo took a breath. Well, I had always thought that Ankir was how you referred to lovers. G'Kar laughed again, and Londo laughed with him in a way that was more tense than amused. Oh, I know plenty of lovers who wish they were Ankir, said G'Kar, and that was not comforting at all, actually. G'Kir, said Londo, and he let a hint of his political voice creep into his tone. All the... what is the word? Flirting? Those were all jokes, yes. I was not trying to give the wrong impression. That'd only make G'Kar laugh harder. No, of course they were jokes. That's not the point. How typical Centauri. Give them a perfectly good word about emotional intimacy and all they can see there is sex. You say we are the ones governed by animal instincts. G'Kar, I feel as though a joke is being made at my expense. Oh, I assure you it is. Well, I do not find it particularly funny, and I do not understand it. Very well, G'Kar relented, but his eyes were still laughing. The word Ankir, well, none of it is about sex, or about love for that matter. It can be if those are the feelings which modify your relationship, but it certainly doesn't have to be. Most of the greatest Narn epics are about Ankir Kwa. Arch enemies, you might say. You can have strong emotional bonds of hate, love, or any number of things. It's the strength of the bonds that matter. There are hundreds of people in our lives we consider Thon, dozens we consider Onka, but a life with even one or two Ankir is a very good life, no matter what sort of Ankir. Londo nodded slowly. I see. So, it should be Ankiruri, then, for those who are close, out of love, not merely Ankir? G'Kar scoffed. God forbid, I cannot even fathom what an Ankir relationship would be like. Perhaps Delen's feelings for Lenier. He paused suddenly. That was a very cruel thing for me to say. Please forget I said it. And on your life, Malari, never, ever repeat it to either of them. Why, great maker. Just as I thought I was beginning to understand, it seems you've lost me again. Completely. If Ankir is for strong feelings, and Uri is love... G'Kar sighed. The modifier Uri is not love, it is... pity. Londo said nothing, but his mouth formed a silent "oh." So as to your original question, no, Ankori is not the way you would refer to lovers. Wait a moment, said Londo, holding up a finger. You say Ankori is not how you speak of lovers, but Thonori is how you speak of friends. No, Thonori is how you speak of friends. Apparently, as I said, very revealing about Centauri culture. Yes, you're right, said Londo. How do you say that cuts a little close to home? They sat in silence for a time then until Londo couldn't bear it any longer. So, what am I to you then? A hate friend or a pity friend? G'Kar closed his eyes for a moment as he thought about that. Well, when we met, I certainly hated you. I think I first started to pity you when I was in your mind. And when I was held captive by Cartasia, of course, I pitied you a great deal then, but now? Well, I respect you. Far more than I'd like to be honest. I trust you to a degree that sometimes frightens me, at least where the important things are concerned. You still insufferably annoying to me, but I find that these days I look on that annoyance with a sort of almost fondness. I even think I admire you in part, although the pity is stronger, so some combination of all of those, I should think. It was significantly more of an answer than Londo was expecting, and for a moment he was a little bit taken aback. But wait, so then there are more modifiers than just hatred and pity? G'Kar snorted. Of course, can you even imagine a language which only had two? Or, well, I suppose you can. Londo found himself actually chuckling at the obvious bait and over how things between them had changed, hadn't they? So you have Thornori and Thonqua. What else? Oh, let's see. Thonzak, Thonruli, Thonka. There must be at least a dozen common modifiers. Probably hundreds of uncommon ones, since poets will practically make up new ones on the spot. It sounds very confusing. Very hard to keep track of, I'd imagine. No harder than it is to keep track of all your terminology, what with friends, enemies, and lovers who claim they were just friends and friends who pretend to be enemies. Don't forget the enemies who pretend to be friends, eh? Of course, enemies with whom you will form the partnerships of convenience. What do you Centauri even call those, Malari? In the royal court, business as usual, I should think. And then there are those people who you were once one thing with, but now you are another. How's that not more confusing? Former friends? Former enemies? Londo looked away. Yes, and worst of all, I think, soon to be former friends. They were silent again, and Londo could feel G'Kar's eyes on him, but couldn't quite meet his gaze. He thought probably too much Uri there. I think I'm gonna go to sleep now, G'Kar, he said finally as he lay back down on the prison cot, his back to the rest of the cell. Alright, said G'Kar, and Londo wished G'Kar's voice were less kind of wished that the cell hummed like the quarters on the station, and wished a million times over that he would not die with the hatred in his heart. A long time passed in silence before G'Kar finally spoke again, so quietly that Londo wouldn't have heard it if he had been anywhere near sleeping. Malari? Yes, G'Kar? No matter how the feelings between us have changed, when it happens, we will still be Ankh-here. Even if... Yes, always. Always. Londo echoed into the dead, silent night. Well, then I suppose at least that is that. Alrighty, that was Adventures in Xenolinguistics. Oh, I actually, okay, if people are... I'm sorry if I got loud there. It's kind of hard for me to do the G'Kar and Londo switch. It was fun, though. I did have a lot of fun with it. Hopefully I didn't butcher Londo's voice. I actually looked up a couple videos to see what I was doing. Kind of sounded like almost somewhere between a Russian, Soviet accent. And I probably butchered it. So, yeah. And for those who don't know the rules, links down below. Give the author some love. If you like the story, if you like my reading, tell me down below. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, thank you for joining me for this fan fiction reading. I will see you all next time. Ta-ta for now.